What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the seventh album by rapper T.I. Basically, this product is called No Mercy, and it came out in the late fall of 2010. So the thing about this particular product is just the fact that T.I. came off of his prison sentence, and his hit album from 2008, Paper Trail, had some pretty heraldment about those particular times. T.I. was particularly large in like the mid-late 2000s, was one of the ones that helped kick off trap music. Pitches like that, had a series of mixtapes, also helped found like the Gangsta Girls mixtape, some of those type pitches. But in particular, he got arrested in 2007, led to him going to prison in 2009. And then he was working on this particular album when he got out in early 2010. It's a good pitch. This album was originally going to be called King Uncaged, which was a pretty good pitch about that. This particularly, I do like the name King Uncaged better than this particular one, No Mercy. But the unfortunate thing about it is right before this album came out, T.I. got arrested and went back to prison for another basically approximately a year throughout 2011 as far as those pitches going to happen. So he did not really get to promote this album properly. It was kind of the concept. But the thing about this particular product is just the fact that T.I. in particular around this time was not like completely aware of like the shifts that had kind of happened while he was in prison in 2009, with some of the mixtape type fairs, some of those type things. Gucci Man was blowing up, which he wasn't quite as huge in the spring of 2009 before he went to prison. Waka Flocka, some of those types of folks. Gotti, Future, some of these type of folks that were blowing up throughout 2010 and pitches like that. The mixtape grind was just pretty ravenous around this particular time. And it was kind of similar to what happened with Jeezy. I've talked about this in some of the Jeezy reviews I did with his 2010 projects. T.I. was kind of getting sandwiched and shoehorned out of like the main spotlight throughout 2010, and his singles were just not charting as heavily as they did like in the 2000s, which was kind of the pitch behind it. I think that was kind of I mean, Ti was definitely richer on this time. I mean, I know he was probably worth like 75, 80 million dollars or more. Pitches like that, I'd say it was just kind of the concept that his time in the spotlight just seemed to be altered once he went to prison in 2009. Now, obviously, he had the appeal, he had the lyric capabilities. This is one of his best albums, and it's definitely going to get a rave and overall classic score, I'd have to say, or at least pretty approximately close to that. It's really all but on the cusp of getting like a 10 out of 10, I would have to say. But this is the concept that it, in terms of like the commercial smashes, if you're looking for something like Whatever You Like, or if you're looking for something like Live Your Life, some of those type pitches, it doesn't have hits that particular large. And it also doesn't have hits that are more in like the hardcore rap type territory, like songs like Top Back and what, or Top Back and What You Know, and some of those type ones, You Don't Know Me and ASAP, some of those type pitches, Rubber Band Man, some of those type pitches from T.I.'s 2000s days. So this album really doesn't feel like a trap album this much. It kind of feels like an amalgamation of like the albums King and Paper Trail. I'd say it's just basically like a beefed up version like the King album, just without the swag rap type tone. This is not as much like a swag rap type album, which is an interesting concept. Is that T.O. is not. I mean, he definitely has charisma on this album, but it's just not as much swag rap bound. I would look after. It's just kind of an amalgamation of T.I. trying to find a sound that just kind of feels like an odd batch of things as far as that particular going to happen. But I look after it, it's commercial enough, and it just feels like it's basically yeah, I would just have to say like pretty much like a new era of Ti, just with a little bit of King without the swag rap on steroids. I'd have to say with like some Paper Trail cuts on here on steroids, because Ti basically said, I looked this up on Wikipedia, and apparently the concept that he did write his lyrics a little bit on this particular album. You can tell the ones that were kind of like that, songs like Castle Walls and Get Back Up, some of those type pitches particularly kind of had like the more writing Ti, just because it just feels like the same sort of style that he kind of had with songs like No Matter What and some of those type ones off of Paper Trail, I'd have to say. But I just look over the concepts and good stuff there. The thing about this particular album, again, is just being able to say that the thing about it is there's 14 songs in the standard edition, but there's like there were several bonus songs that came out of this particular product. So what I'm basically gonna do, I'm not going to review all the bonus songs because there would be about 22 different songs that would come out of this particular project. There's approximately 8 bonus songs off this particular product that were not on the standard edition, between like the Target and the Best Buy editions, the iTunes deluxe edition, some of these differential type deluxe editions that just compiled like these 8 songs. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm just going to do like a bonus review months from now or something like that. I don't know when it's going to happen. Don't hold your breath for it, but I'll definitely get another review in there with like the bonus songs from No Mercy, just to review those and score them, just because there's enough on here to warrant like another review for some of this. But I'm just going to review the 14 song edition. So yeah, there were basically there were 8 singles off this particular album. The promotion cycle. 4 of these were ones that were going to be on the King Uncaged album when that was kind of coming out. It was originally going to come out in the summer of 2010, and then 4 of these are the ones that actually made the album No Mercy. But all 8 of these songs you can find on like all of the deluxe, just every last edition that's on No Mercy. You can find all 8 of these songs, but you might have to buy this album like 2 or 3 times to get them all. So that's this kind of concept. But we'll go ahead and start with the single that's on this album, unlike the standard edition, which is Get Back Up featuring Chris Brown. So I'm just going to talk about 4 of these singles, like I was saying, that are actually on the standard edition. But Get Back Up is the first single. It's like a go hard kind of recovery song. I would definitely have to say it's like good for like Bad Hair Day type vibes and Day Dredge. I would definitely feel like this definitely reminds me of like the Paper Trail days. I'd have to say it's a beefing up type one. Chris Brown does a pretty excellent job with this particular one with the hook and the background vocals, some of that type area. Just a very melodic type one. It says an affable type tone. Just a good pitch behind it. Just the aspect of getting some affability. Just really, I feel like this probably should have had a lot more commercial bite than it did. I'm just surprised that T.I. didn't do better in 2010. It was just kind of interesting that he was kind of sandwiched out of the spotlight, It's just kind of interesting that he was kind of sandwiched out of the spotlight, like I was saying, just within that relative type tone. It's kind of an unfortunate type thing, but this was definitely a good song. Just had the very melodicness. Just had a real kind of this kind of like butter smooth type beat on here. Just some real kind of ambient type production. Just real nice melodic, just I want to say angelic, but just like the tone, just really something that just feels very like floaty and just overall cloudy, just within a or just a real plush type one, I would have to say. Some good tones for that. But yeah, I should definitely take it back to like the Paper Trail days. Songs like No Matter What, some of those type tones. Just one of those get back, just basically by the tone of the song, get back up, get back on your feet. Some of those type pitches, just go hard. Some of that type tone, good pitch for that. But I Can't Help It's the second single. This has Rocco on there, which is a pretty good pitch. I wasn't expecting like T.I. to do a song with Rocco, considering the fact that Rocco is pretty established in like the 2000s as far as those pitches kind of happen, but he didn't really have that many hits to his name. He just kind of disappeared after his self-made album. He did kind of have like a couple mixtapes and buzz songs as far as those pitches kind of happened in the early 2010s, but it's dope enough that T.I. sought him out to collaborate and do some music with him as far as that kind of goes. It's like a superb kind of club turn up. I would definitely feel like this reminds me of like the Takers single. That is a bonus track on like this particular album. And I'd say good concept. Yeah, you know, or the Taker song. I forget what the full name of that song is, but it's a nice song there. It's like a jazzy kind of blissed out, smoke good kind of nights of a song, I'd have to say. This particular song, I Can't Help It, has one of the best beats on this particular album. Just a real thumping, pounding type one. It's real electric type one. It's real electrifying type one that just has a lot of good energy and just overall shrillness about it. It's a real nice one. Definitely one to get jarred to. Definite one to get jarred to and just smoke up. Just some good tones for that. No Mercy is a good change of pace. This is like another one that's kind of like the Paper Trail days. This real affable type one, just in a dark sense. It's like a tensive and kind of fierce night commerce of a song, I'd have to suppose in particular. It's definitely like some Paper Trail kind of sobering vibes about this one. Reminds me of something that Eminem would do. Is just a very personal, ruminating type song to kind of get here. And this just has an overall shrill tone. So it's just a very darkened type one, just like the overall emboldened type aspect of this particular one. It's not emboldened like it's trying to be like courageous, but this is kind of the concept of this kind of saying it's very similar to like Ready for Whatever off the Paper Trail album. I'd have to say in particular the Dream has a pretty good team up with T.I. on here. And that's another thing about this particular product is just the fact that T.I. teams up with a lot of people that you wouldn't expect him to. Like he re-teams up with Young Dro on this product, which is a pretty good pitch. He re-teams up with Pharrell on this product, which he hadn't teamed up with him in a while. Teams up with The Dream, teams up with Rocco, teams up with Chris Brown, teams up with Christina Aguilera, teams up with Rico Love, some of these types of people. There's just some good ones. Re-teams up with Eminem. That's another good pitch. There's just some real nice ones on here. Teams up with Kid Cudi and Kanye West, some of those type folks. It's just an excellent type concept to get a lot of these. It's real affable type tones on here. Even Scarface is on here, some of these type of folks. So it's just some good concepts, despite the fact that I don't recommend out all these. Yeah, some good pitches behind that. But yeah, No Mercy is definitely pretty shrill one. This real dramatic type one that just has a lot of flair about it. And then That's All She Wrote is the fourth single. Now, this is a pretty good pitch, at least on the standard edition. It's the fourth single. This has Eminem on there. This is kind of an interesting team up just because this is Eminem from like his recovery days, but it really doesn't feel like a recovery leftover or something from that relative tone. This is like an uncommon Shady and T.I. team up. I would definitely feel like this reminds of like 2000s Eminem. I'd have to say an interesting pitch for that. It's definitely like some late day dredge and just some summer haze kind of get here. So this one kind of feels more like a summer song. Just an interesting concept, kind of have some of that just because it really, I don't want to say it feels like an encore song, but it doesn't feel like a relapse song, doesn't feel like a recovery era song, doesn't really feel like an Eminem show song. It just feels like something that T.I. or it just feels like something that Eminem would have done on like a standard cut. But the thing about it is it's just like some summer, just like some summer southern bounce. This feels more like a Nelly song, something like that. It's an up tempo one, definitely has some jazzy kind of snap towards it, but it's just the concept of it. This feels like a backyard kind of smoke in your backyard, just kind of hearing the chiggers, pitches like that. Just some good concepts of just like sipping brews and just that affability to just smoke in the backyard. Just really feels like more countryside type pitches as far as that particular kind of goes, more so than something that Eminem would typically kind of be on. It's just a differential concept. Originally, back in the day, I didn't used to like this song as much. I kind of felt like the beat was a little bit weak on here. I feel like both the team ups that Eminem and Ti kind of did, like I don't want to say that like Touchdown was kind of underwhelming, but it was just kind of one I would have felt like Eminem should have been on a song like probably like Poppin' Bottles, which was the song Drake was on. I think Eminem would have torn that particular song up, and I definitely think Eminem probably would have torn up like I Can't Help It with Rocco on there. Those would have probably been some better ones for him to have been on. But I do feel like this particular beat is pretty decent as far as that goes. I mean, it's a good one. This is a differential type one, but it's not the fiercest song off this particular album that Eminem probably should have been on. But I look after it, it's really like some backyard kind of summer dredge. Just really feels like summer just activity just within that tone, just standard typical day. But they both shred this particular song. There's some good concepts there. It's just interesting recovery era Eminem being on a song like this. Good team up. I definitely think that Eminem and Ti need to do more songs, but that just kind of happens to be a thing. So yeah, out of the 14 song edition, I wound up recommending 11 and a half songs. So really the only two songs I don't recommend in any fashion would just be How Life Changed and then Big Picture, which the disappointing thing about Big Picture is that once again, just like on the Paper Trail album, I didn't like the DJ Toomp beats on there. Big Picture was just another disappointing type one. It was just very similar to the productions that DJ Toomp gave Ti on like the Paper Trail albums. Very flat type ones. This felt like a more stretching type one. It's really too bad that DJ Toomp wasn't able to give Ti something like What You Know or one of those type ones, or You Don't Know Me, some of those type hits that he gave Ti back in the Urban Legend and like King Day, some of those type pitches. But he just kind of feels like an afterthought on this particular album, which is a disappointment. So he doesn't come through for this project. Not to say in not any fashion he doesn't come through, but this was not as great as it needed to be. And How Life Changed was just kind of a dredgy type one. This definitely feels like a Paper Trail type one, but it just doesn't nail the vibes of some of these other better ones that do it, like Castle Walls and No Mercy and Get Back Up. I'd have to say this is kind of more of one that just kind of feels like a reflective kind of hammy type one. That's just a ruminating personal type one that just doesn't really have like the sheer spark that it probably needs to. It's just kind of more reflective type one, but it just feels less compelling about doing it. Kind of happens to be a thing. But yeah, every other song on this particular project I recommend. But the almost song that I kind of am on the fence about is "Welcome to the World," which features Kanye West and Kid Cudi. So I'll go ahead and talk about that one. It's like a jury kind of pop rap slog of a song. I'd say it's just it's a more makeshift version of like horrorcore rap. I'd have to say, or at least horror rap in particular. And the swamp vibes are pretty decent. The swamp vibe, the darkened swamp vibes of this particular song are pretty decent. I'd have to say it's just the concept. I like this song, but it's just not the most shrilly kind of affable type one. I mean, Ti doing Kanye West particular type song. I like the basic kind of attempt behind it, but it feels like it just has a more backpackers kind of sense of drama that I just don't know as full blown as like the sootiness of this particular one as far as I would kind of go. I mean, I like Kid Cudi's background vocals on this particular song. He does a pretty good job of contributing and enhancing the song, but I look after it. I don't know. This felt more of like a B.O.B. song, like something that would have been on like a B.O.B. mixtape or something like that, compared to something that Ti probably would have had more affability behind. I mean, I like the kind of dramatic type tone. It's like a more daytime dredge type. It's a more daytime type dredge drama of like a song like No Mercy. Not as fierce, intense as No Mercy, but definitely a relatively jarring type one for like 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock p.m. just within a sense. But it's kind of its commute is just kind of here and there. I mean, I'd rate it probably about like a 6.5 in terms of like the quality as far as that pitch kind of goes. That it's a good song, but it's just not. I don't know when it were to come up in like a shuffle or when I were to appear upon the song as to how many times I would just actually, not skip to another song or something like that. It's not a bad song. It's just kind of concept that's just one I'm on the fence about. But but a real nice one on here is Strip. This is an excellent type. This is definitely some fierceness. There's definitely some fierceness. It's like an excellent kind of grade A team up. I'd have to say, vintage Young Dro and TIP. I would definitely feel like Trey Songz nails this hook. I'd have to say in particular. Definitely some club snarl, and it's just an overall hooky thumper to kind of get here. So this one just has a real pounding type quality. Takes it back to Ti from like the 2000s days. Once again, this is another folk that T.I. needs to team up with more, just like with Eminem. This is definitely some concepts that just seeing some of these, you would definitely think that there should have been way more Young Dro type songs with T.I. as far as those pitches kind of happen. This is indefinite. But considering that Young Dro did not pop up on Paper Trail or some of those other type pitches, it's just a good concept to kind of get back to that and just be like, hey, remember this dude as far as that pitch kind of goes? It's a good concept for that. But Trey Songz helps out with this as well. It's real nice, kind of get Cray type tone. Salute's a pretty nice one as well. It's like a mellow and kind of leisurely kind of summer days, or I would definitely feel like. The song has an affable hook. I like this one better than it's one of the better hooks out this particular album. I'd have to say it's like an underrated album cut. I would definitely feel like Smoke a Few. Definitely a good song to smoke a few, and this is like a homies kind of dap kind of gem, I'd have to say here. So it's this good concept for this. It's really like the relative this leisurely kind of tone about this. Just a basic type one to kind of get here. T.I. just on his relative just at ease kind of vibes. Just a decent concept, kind of has some of this in particular. It's another Summer Haze, basically a little bit more malaise type one compared to That's All She Wrote. But it's interesting that T.I. kind of had some summer vibes on here, just some outback kind of country vibes just within that tone. So it's just a concept that you just wouldn't think is full bound kind of about. I mean, this is really, I mean, there are some songs on here like Lay Me Down, Poppin' Bottles, and Everything on Me, some of those type pitches, but it's kind of a blend between like Day Dredge, which is kind of an interesting concept, just some of that type tone that Nelly would have on like albums like Country Grammar, just some of these summer outback type ones. I feel like songs like just kind of more just localized kind of suburban kind of commute songs like Castle Walls, That's All She Wrote, and Salute, some of those type of ones, and Welcome to the World, and just songs like Get Back Up, some of those type tones that I'd say it's just an interesting concept that it kind of meets like it kind of meets like club life with just a little bit more dredge just within the concept, but it's not makeshift. It's just an interesting concept because you get suburban living, but it's not necessarily makeshift or you're at work or on the job, I'd say. So it's just a different pitch for TIC in this particular tone that he did here. But yeah, one of the best songs on this particular album is Poppin' Bottles with Drake. Definitely enjoyed this one. It's like a shrill and vicious kind of nightclub pounder, I would definitely have to say. Crest of the Night, kind of Go Cray, Weekend Relief, I would definitely feel like hearing this is just some good flash to kind of get. Definitely one of the best beats. It's a real pounding type one to kind of get. Just an excellent type concept. Great one to pop bottles, pop champagne. I mean, obviously pop bottles, but pop champagne, some of those type pitches. Just really get crazy, some of that type tone. Just really appreciate the night. Drake was a grade A type artist to fuck with back in 2010. It's just an excellent type concept that T.I. was not behind the times and actually fucked with some folks that were relevant to like 2010. I mean, there were some ones on here like, I mean, for the most part, this album is somewhat trendy, but it is kind of, I feel like it's not like, it's not like the most hip right now, right at this moment of like 2010. I kind of feel like maybe T.I. was like 15 minutes ago on this particular album in 2010, which is kind of the concept. I feel like Drake is about the only real truly noteworthy artist from like these particular times. I mean, yeah, Kid Cudi's on here, but he doesn't really rap on here. It's just kind of the concept. And this is like it's just interesting this pitch that T.I. was trying to work towards with like 2010 as far as getting towards like just like what he was trying to craft in like the early 2010s, because it's not so much he doesn't sound outdated, he doesn't sound like obsolete or something like he doesn't sound obsolete or inadequate or something like that, but I just would look after it's just kind of the concept that you just kind of get a different tone with some of that. But Castle Walls is a nice one. This says Christina Aguilera on there. It's like a personal and kind of stellar ruminating commotion. I would definitely feel like it's like a Paper Trail throwback, I would definitely have to say, and it's like a revamp kind of consistent gem, I'd have to say here. So the thing about this particular one is it just is basically Paper Trail on steroids. That I'd say just really consistently bolsters that particular style and just does it better. It's just good to be able to see that T.I. was able to keep some of these type vibes and get towards it. I feel like in some senses these were like the ones that were at least attempted to kind of be some aspects of being like the pop rap type ones to kind of get for like some more commercial type appeals. And these are good songs, but for the most part, it just kind of felt like T.I. was kind of cast the wayside. It just felt like all the singles, there just were more popping things around that time. More folks were focused on Rick Ross with his new drill type vibes, the drill type sound of the 2010s with mixtapes, Waka Flocka, Gucci Mane, some of those type folks, B.O.B., Bruno Mars, some of those type folks around that particular time, Flow Rida, some of those type folks, Pitbull. It's just kind of a differential concept. There just didn't seem to be enough room for T.I. or Jeezy around this particular time. So I would say it's bad. I mean, this is going to get damn near a 10 out of 10 was this kind of thing. Even with T.I.'s weapons of the Paper Trail type songs, it didn't help as much as it needed to. Amazing is a real nice one on here. It's like an uncommon kind of thumper. I would definitely feel like this is like a stock Pharrell and TIP team up. I would definitely feel like it's got a skeletal kind of club bounce about this one. definite good ladies buzz to, and I'd have to say, and it's pretty good dance bop to kind of get here. So I really appreciate this, the affable, this kind of effortless kind of tone of this particular production. It's real nice in between album cut, has a lot of spark and just appeal about it. Just would have to say, just another stock type cut. Ti just really sails through this particular album. That's the thing. Despite the fact that Ti didn't have like his commercial appeal on this particular product, he just nails these songs left and right. This is just a classic album right here, just underappreciated, despite the fact that most people will probably say, "Oh, trap music is his best," or "Oh, King is his best," or "Paper Trail is his best." This is actually an underappreciated type one. That just because they didn't have the number ones and like the top five, top 10 singles does not mean this is a bad album. This was not as commercially thumping. But Lay Me Down's another nice one. It's like a slinky and glared kind of great song to be super torched to. I would definitely feel like it's definitely like some social step out while buzzed. I would definitely feel like this is some good dance heat. So a lot of these songs on here, some ones like Amazing's pretty good torque song for the ladies. Lay Me Down's pretty nice torque song for the ladies. Just some of these nice ones. Poppin' Bottle's a nice one. Strip is a nice one. It's just pretty affable how a particular album this is. It's just for like some good dance craze to kind of get here. This definitely works pretty heavily on the dance floor. A lot of these just really have that appeal behind it. Really like the appeal behind it. So another nice highlight on here would be Everything on Me. This is kind of a differential type tone for Ti. I'd say it's a real nice one, just a different type pitch. I definitely like the appeal of how this particular turned out. It's like a living good kind of full speed ahead turn up of a song. I would definitely feel like it's like a crest of the night kind of snarl. I would definitely have to say, and it's like a more commercial kind of bopper. The thing about this one is this is kind of one where this would be like the pitch of the night, just kind of feeling like something where you just are. It just kind of feels like a Everything on Me just feels like a song you'd listen to after having a heavy night of partying, but realizing you have to go to prison for the next day as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. This one that just gets really crazy, kind of, this reminds me of something that Tupac would kind of do just within a pitch of something. Just realizing you're just gonna live it up and live life fast and then go to prison and then just deal with your sentence, something like that. I'd had the same particular, just kind of one of those type ones. It just almost feels hammy or surreal, just the overall tone of that particular, just emphatic kind of energy, that particular song. It may just be a living good type one, just a fast life type one, but it just feels like, considering the concept, I think Ti might have made this song knowing of his fate as far as those pitches gonna happen. Not as full blown sure, but it just feels a little bit surreal of one. So then tell me that is a nice. I do like the emphasis and the overall emphaticness of that particular song. So that's the basic concept about this particular album. Just full of quality. Just would have to say plenty of these type ones on here within that relative to sheer type pitch. So the score I'm going to give this album, me recommending 11.5 out of 14 on here. I'm going to give this album like a 9.75. Or I would either give it a 9.5 out of 10 or a 9.75. But I'm just going to go ahead and say, I'll go ahead and give this album like a 9.75. I just look behind the quality of it. There's just too many blistering songs on here. Out of all these songs on here, there's just one after. The reason why it's getting a 9.75 and not a 9.5 is just because there's 4 singles that hit pretty heavily, but there's just so many of these songs, especially in like the second half of this album. Songs like Everything on Me, Poppin' Bottles, Lay Me Down, Amazing, Salute, Strip, some of these type ones. I Can't Help It, even at the beginning of the album, Get Back Up. There's just a lot of these that are like damn near 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 in terms of the actual quality of these. These are ones that would get repeat plays, not just some of these that are just you listen to here and there, or maybe once out of 5 or 8 times that it comes up. But actually, a lot of these just have a lot of immediate type appeal. So it's just a blistering quality that this is all but a classic here. I just would say if it just would have, if I would have been a little bit more convinced about Welcome to the World, this probably would have been a 10 out of 10 album. It's just the pitch behind it. But I'm just at this particular moment, just on the fence. It is a pretty good song, and I do like the dreary overall kind of makeshift of just like that particular tone, that particular slog of that. But it just kind of, it's just more questionable for Ti with that relative pitch. I mean, he nails it. I think if Kanye had done this particular type production, had come up with something for that usual sound for him and folks like B.O.B., I would have said it would have been nailed better. But it's kind of the thing. But the social score gets a 10 out of 10. I just would say, yeah, this new blend of T.I. kind of doing like suburban type songs like Salute and songs like That's All She Wrote, some of those type ones, plus the combined rebolstered type of PO songs like from the Paper Trail aspects like Castle Walls and No Mercy and Get Back Up. Some good tones to kind of get here, combined with a lot of this club life that this is some of the best songs that T.I. did up to that point with like songs like Strip, Poppin' Bottles, Lay Me Down, some of those type pitches. Amazing, Everything on Me. Just some real good tones to be able to have some of these on here. It just has a lot of good affability behind it. So it just has a lot of good bursts of activities that just really work extremely heavily. So easy 10 out of 10 social. Playing these. In terms of the future, like T.I. once again has not put out any projects. I want to say since either 2018 or 2020. We'll have to see what's up. Now he said that he might be retiring from music. We'll have to see what particularly kind of happens with that. It's been a while since he's dropped, but we'll just have to get some more of these. He does have plenty more projects. I've got some mixtapes on the way. I'm going to get to. There's plenty more projects just within those tones. But yeah, this is pretty much might as well be just a basic kind of classic here, and definitely an easy kind of highlight. It's an underrated highlight on top of that, the early 2010s and just 2010s in general. Ti was just on a reinvigorated type vibe and just had some viciousness about him that just is underappreciated, especially considering that most people thought he was washed up by this point.